Let's Talk Small Business, the real talk, no BS podcast for business owners and entrepreneurs who want to grow and actually enjoy the ride. I'm Mitchell Wilson. Let's get into it. Hey, I'm pleased to have on the episode today Richard Butler. We discussed a little bit about how to introduce him today, but we decided he is an entrepreneur, an AI expert, a musician,
bold,
and we've also found out black belt in karate. So I'm really looking forward to the conversation today about your career, all things business, and obviously everyone's always, the buzzword right now is AI and how that's going to be changing the SME business scene as well. So Richard, let's talk small business.
Sounds good. Where should we start?
Where should we start? Well, hey, look, I'd love to hear about your journey in business because off the top of my head, I know that you've just sort of exited a company, Blueberry IT, that's been around for a little while. I know, and we'll dig into a little bit, that you've also been a coach as well alongside that, business coach. So, look, your journey into entrepreneurship or your history and work, where's it all start?
Okay, I'll give you my potted history then, I guess. So I have spent most of my career working in technology, but I never intended to get into that business. It wasn't an aim of mine. And I originally started, I studied a degree in acoustics. So as you mentioned, I'm a musician as well. And that was my real kind of passion as a kid. I just wanted to be a rock star. But I knew I had to go to university and get a degree. So I ended up studying acoustics with the strangely vain hope that would help me along the way. It didn't really, but I did meet some cool people and I had some great times and made some great music as well. But when I left university, I ended up working in recording studios. I did about 3 years working in recording studios. I used to fix the studio equipment because I had a background in electronics as well. So those big, massive reel-to-reel tape machines that you see in the old studios.
Wow. Yeah.
The big, massive mixing desks that you see. And I did that for about 3 years, and I did actually really enjoy it. But in the process of there, I moved countries a couple of times. So I was living in London, then I moved to Dublin, did a couple of years there, and then I ended up moving back to the UK just before my son was born. And there was just no work in that arena. It was kind of late 90s. All the studios were just running on computers. Everybody was making music at home and on their PCs. And studios were just kind of dying a death, really. And I was kind of going, right, okay, well, I've got no job. I've got a child on the way. I've moved back to a new country. I don't have any connections anymore. I really need to do something. And I talked my way into an IT job, actually, just because I'd used computers a lot in the studios, and found it was something I just was naturally good at. Never really intended to stay there, but that's what I did. And I did that for a few years, then ended up moving to New Zealand, and got a job over here and worked for about 6 years for an IT services provider here in Nelson.
What brought you to New Zealand?
I just wanted to change. I wanted somewhere safer for my son to grow up compared to the UK. I could kind of see that things were not really, I don't know, I still think they're going downhill now, but just wasn't really the child that I wanted for my son, and this felt like a much more safer and kind of more outdoorsy place for him to grow up. So we ended up in Nelson by accident, really. I just managed to get a job here, which I was applying for jobs in Wellington, but something came up here, and we just thought, well, we'll try it for a little while, and if we don't like it, we can always move, and never left. So I did that for 6 years, and then the opportunity came up with a bunch of people I was working with to start our own business, and it was something I'd always wanted to do. I don't really know. I can't even put my finger on why. I think it was just one of those things that I felt was always kind of nagging at me in the background. I think it's partly because I don't like being told what to do. So I thought, well, now or never, right? I was 30, what had I been, 38 at the time, I guess. So we kicked that business off. That was Blueberry IT. And yeah, 16 years I ran that business, and then sold it last year and got out this year. So for the first time in my life since I was 16, I'm technically unemployed.
Congratulations!
Yeah, thank you. It's kind of weird, and it takes a little bit of getting used to, and I can't do it for much longer because I'm not that wealthy that I can stop, never work again. But I am really enjoying having a little bit of time off. It's given me some time to think, which is good. But
Now,
yes,
Blueberry IT, I'm going to guess that that kicked off around about the time where BlackBerry phones were around. Is that where we kind of got the name?
not really, but yes, it was around that time. Now, there's a precedent for this fruit in technology.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, Apple, BlackBerry. In the UK, there was a telephone company called Orange. We weren't the first and
Following a
only.
trend.
The reason the name came about actually was it was sort of a we were kind of brainstorming on a whiteboard some names, and this one came up, and we were quite adamant that we didn't want to have the word computer or anything like that in our name, and we wanted it to be something really different to what everybody else was doing. So it was for us, it was about kind of differentiating ourselves because technology businesses are they kind of do the same thing, and for us, it was about looking a little bit different to everybody else. So it was
Okay. So it sounded like there were four of you guys, you're all working together, you decided to go out on your own. Tell me about that initial phase of getting together, like you said, brainstorming names and a whiteboard and how it all started and came about, sort of thing.
Yeah, so it happened very quickly actually, and it all kicked off from a chance comment in a meeting that we'd had with our former employer, and there's just a kind of a chat, this sort of thing thrown about. Oh, it wouldn't be good if, and I ended up approaching the guy who said it and said, look, I'm keen if you are, and we managed to shoulder tap a few other guys to come along with us. I'm sure my ex-employer was not particularly happy at the time that four of their team left all at once. But yeah, we set that up, and we were very, very fortunate in many ways that a lot of customers that we had in that previous business kind of came along with us. I mean, we were not soliciting them at all. They approached us when they'd heard what happened, and that was really good for us because it gave us a really great base to start with, and we grew quite rapidly. So there was four of us to start with, which is it's quite a weight on a brand new business to have four people in it, and essentially we didn't pay ourselves for about 6 months, but that's okay. We were just building up some cash reserves. But within a year, I think within 9 months we had our first employee, and within a year and a half we were up to 10, which sort of it was really rapid growth, and yeah, it was a little bit stressful, I suppose, in terms of having that many employees. I'd never employed people before, so that was that comes with its own set of challenges, and I've realised over the years that whilst I can be a good leader, I'm a absolutely terrible manager, and that is a job I should not be doing. So mainly because I have no attention to detail, and also I just expect people to do what they need to do, which is probably not a very good.
It sounds like you grew. What was your main offering? What was the offering, and who were your target clients?
Yes, I mean we're an IT services provider, so we sold technology, we installed technology, we looked after technology, and all of our clients were businesses. So we had a lot of real estate businesses who we looked after, and Nelson, some of the mostly kind of professional services, so lawyers, real estate agents, accountants. Nelson Hospice were a big customer of ours for many years. Yeah, but just a whole bunch of stuff. I think if you try and specialize in a small town like Nelson, you're asking for trouble really, because there's just not that big a market in a particular vertical. So yeah, it worked really well for us. So I think over the first maybe 5 years or so, the other three business partners kind of dropped out. Maybe that says something about me. For various reasons, people went their own way. I ended up after about 5 years just running that business myself, and I did that for a couple of years. Got another business partner in who owned a business in Blenheim, and that's how we kind of stretched over into that region as well. And then it must have been about 2 or 3 years after that. Actually, that's when I sort of started extracting myself from the business. So I put a manager in who was running it for me, and that's when I got into the coaching thing. So I kind of went off and retrained as a personal coach, working with other business owners. So I had Blueberry on the side, which has been run for me, and then I had this other business, which I thought it worked really well for me because I like to have a lot of variety, and also it was good for me to take the learnings that I got from my coach training and also working with other business owners and bring them back into my own business as well. So those two things worked really well alongside each other. And then a couple of things happened, personal reasons, with a couple of my employees, and I had to kind of step back in again. So I let the coaching stuff go, which I do miss. I really enjoyed it, but that's all brought me back into Blueberry. But then I realized at that time it was like, okay, I need to start planning how I get out of this business, because I felt at the time that I was probably holding it back a little bit, because I'd sort of, yeah, I don't know what's the right word. It wasn't that I'd lost interest in it. It's just that there were other things that I wanted to do, and I realized it was probably time for somebody else to take over the reins.
Didn't motivate you
Six,
anymore.
well, 16 years running a business like that is it's a lot. It's probably like 30 years of working a job.
I love it. I love it. Hey, I know we always love to talk about success stories, but what I'm more interested right now is there a time when the shit hit the fan that you can recall? How'd you work through that
Mm.
in the business?
Well,
Because I mean, you said there's staffing issues or the rest,
what
but
do you mean? Is there a time? It's every week in a business,
every
isn't
week,
it?
right?
Yeah, it's like, I think that was part of the fun for me as well, was kind of solving those problems. But I mean, like in any service industry, you are going to come across times where customers are not happy with what you're delivering, whether it's because it's been missold, or because they've misunderstood something, or it hasn't been delivered in a way that they're happy with, or sometimes it's been delivered really poorly. Sometimes people just don't do what needs to be done, and so to me, that's where, weirdly, that's one of the things I actually quite enjoyed. I feel like this is something I'm quite good at with people, is kind of figuring out what's gone wrong, and working towards something that kind of works mutually for everybody. Yeah, I've had plenty of staff challenges over the years as well, like anyone who owns a business has. I've yet to have a personal grievance against me, so hopefully I've done something right, but they've been threatened a few times.
Yeah, yeah. Like in terms of business and stuff, and I guess what you've said in terms of, hey, the learnings, the service based business. But one thing you also mentioned is about manager versus leader,
Mm.
and I totally get there's a huge difference. But I know for
Excuse
the
me.
listeners, those that are maybe new to business or during
Mm.
it, sometimes they don't sort of figure that difference. So
Took me ages.
yeah. So can you sort of dive into that a little bit more in
Yeah,
terms of the
sure.
manager versus the leader?
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a fairly easy dividing line to draw around this. For me, it's around detail. The way I define those two roles is, as a manager, is somebody who is working day to day with people. They're constantly in detail. They are kind of assisting people on a journey, helping them kind of see the good and bad of what they're doing, and kind of getting them to a level that's sort of comfortable for them as a person, but also acceptable for the business. Now, for me, a leader is something completely different. This is about taking people on a journey, being able to tell an aspirational story about where we're going and why, and kind of building excitement in people, or a bunch of people, to go to go somewhere where they aren't. And that is not about detail. I can do the second part really well, the first part not so good. That's why I employed a couple of managers in Blueberry over the years, because I became very aware quite quickly that if I were managing people, I would have personal grievances against me, because I don't always bite my tongue when people are not pulling their weight. And also, nobody would really get what they need from me, which is, the kind of more detailed analysis of where they are. Um, so I think, to me, that's the big difference between a manager and a leader. A leader is really much about inspiring people, and telling aspirational stories, and a manager is about holding hands with people along that journey. So that's the difference to me, anyway. I'm sure there are very other definitions of that.
Now we might as well bring this up now, which is you've just recently released your own podcast,
Yes,
Produce, I believe it was, all about ADHD.
yes.
And it seems like I believe you told me the other day that, hey, look, I've only kind of just came to the realization of that.
Mm.
And some of those traits, in terms of maybe the non-detail orientated, is that part of what you see as
Oh,
ADHD?
totally. Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I guess that journey has been quite a kind of a rocky one for me, I suppose. I always thought there was something a little bit different about the way that I thought about things, but I didn't get a diagnosis until was last year. I was last year. Yeah, it was last year, I guess. So I was 53 when I got my diagnosis about around ADHD. Partially because my sister had also had a diagnosis, and she kind of was telling me about her symptoms, and I kind of nodded and went, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, that's me totally." And
Mhm.
it does run in families apparently. So yeah, I went and went through the process, got a diagnosis, got medication for it, which really helps. I mean, we say this a lot on the podcast. If you think there's something going on there and you've been reading about it and you can kind of relate to those symptoms, just go and get a diagnosis. The drugs, the medication doesn't work for everybody, but I have seen a significant difference for me just around better focus, less procrastination. I don't get as frustrated with people as I used to in the past. I just get stuff done, and I'm not dysfunctional as you are aware listening to the story that I've had
Mhm.
around, being a kind of business owner, and those two businesses I talked about, the IT business and the coaching business. They aren't the only businesses I've owned as well. So I've owned a business that sold the training software. I've owned rental properties over the years. I had another IT business that we bought and sold in the process of owning a Blueberry. So there's been a whole bunch of this stuff on the way. But as I look back and look at all my behaviors over the years, it kind of makes sense in that frame of having ADHD.
Mm.
But it gives me a better way of looking at it now, because I don't get so hard on myself when I can't start things, and I'm starting to leave like kind of plan my day differently around what, like when I've got stuff to do. If I can't get started on it, I walk away and leave it and come back to it, because forcing is a recipe for disaster for me.
I actually think in some cases ADHD can be a bit of a superpower in business because some people just hold back and don't do anything.
Mm,
At least you sort of go 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 go.
yeah, well, I mean, one of the symptoms of ADHD is that you're very happy to take risks, and sometimes they are not very smart risks, and sometimes they are slightly measured and work out. But I have a very high appetite for risk compared to other people, and that plays out in the work that I do. It also plays out in the physical things that I do as well. And so that to me has been a superpower, I suppose. But it also gets me into trouble sometimes because I
Leaves a
don't.
wake behind you. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I don't always think about things as well as I should before I say yes to them. So,
yeah.
that's something I'm trying to get a little bit better as I get older, is actually stop and go, is this really the right thing to do?
Now that you talk about it, actually, like I bet you some of the things. I mean, I actually feel that I probably may be on that spectrum as well. You tell
Yeah,
me a whole lot of those. I'll probably just be nodding here along the
yeah,
way.
yeah.
I know, like, just recently, someone mentioned that to me. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should actually look into it. So we'll find out. I know it's not a laughing matter at all,
No,
but
it's funny.
at my house, I have been diagnosed with ADHD. But in my house, it is annoying dad and husband. So,
Right.
but that's the limit as to where we're here.
Yeah, that's
You've talked a little bit about Blueberry IT and that journey that you went through, and obviously handling staff and the rest, manager versus leadership. Let's dive into the coaching that you were doing, in which you said, "Hey, I love the variety and learning from others and bringing that in." Who were you coaching? What type of people were you into?
Yeah, so mostly I was focused around either business owners or leaders in business, and the reason why we focused in that area was we found that by coaching someone who is in a position of influence over other people, there was actually a huge amount of leverage to be gained by that, because if you improve a manager of a team, you tend to improve the team itself as well. And if you improve the owner of a business, the whole kind of business can grow with it, with people. And that was really where we focused. Yeah, I guess that's kind of what we were trying to achieve with this. And we really were kind of aimed at getting getting people to get the best out of themselves. Everybody's different. We all got our strengths and weaknesses, and recognizing and understanding those is kind of the first step in that journey of improvement. So it was very kind of deep psychological work, I suppose. That the guy who started the organization I worked with had a 10-year history and as a clinical psychologist before he started doing coaching. So his aim was kind of, I want to stop making sick people well and make well people better.
I like it.
That was kind of his thing around that. Yeah.
When you're working with all the clients over the years, was there like a common denominator or something that sort of would come up time and time again?
Yeah, absolutely. The individual sat in the chair in front of me, and the stories that they tell themselves. That was definitely a common thing. I think everybody, even those who say they don't, has have a degree of kind of self talk going on in their heads, and a lot of time it can be negative, and more often than not, it's not true. That was one of the big things we used to work on with our clients is. Understanding when they're put in a particular scenario, what is it that their kind of mind and brain is doing, and how is that getting in the way of what they actually want. So, most of the time when I was working with clients, I was never doing anything practical within their business. I wasn't talking to them about, well, you've got to get your forecasts right and you've got to do your budgets and blah, blah, blah. It was really about, so what is actually getting in the way of you doing what you want to achieve? What's stopping you from moving forward? The details, they're just kind of irrelevant in some ways, because if you play those details out in a scenario where you're in a good headspace, great. You play them out in a bad headspace, it's the exact same scenario. You are not going to get the same results. So we spend a lot of time working with people on the conversations that they're having with themselves about what's to be done,
A
which I
bit
thought
of a
was
shameless
fascinating.
plug here for myself.
Go for it.
Coachbirds, of course, as business coaches ourselves and myself, yeah, there's a lot of people that have the same issue. A
Mm.
lot of them don't actually know that that is the issue,
Yeah, yeah,
but yeah, once that breakthrough happens, then man, changes can happen fast. And
yeah.
as you said, if you're dealing with the top, I mean the difference that it can make, the growth that you can achieve in a short amount of time is more than what people think.
Yeah, it's huge leverage if you can get the person who's making the decisions or driving the business to think about things differently. It can make a huge difference. So yeah, it's fascinating. I didn't know anything about this when I started doing my training as a coach either, and it's like I spent the first year of coach training unpicking myself before I started doing it to other people. So it's hard as well sometimes. I mean, I would say out of the, I don't know how many hundreds of people I worked with in coaching over the years, I would say about 80 to 90% of them have burst into tears at some point in that coaching journey
Mm.
because it can be really confronting to see that you have been in your own way almost all of your life.
So, what did you said just sort of when you were coaching, you actually brought it back to your own business that you were running as
Mm.
well, simultaneously. What do you think you brought back? Obviously, you said that, hey, I really had to look at yourself. Anything else that you brought back from that?
I mean, there are some kind of concrete tools that we used to use in the coaching business. I probably can't say too much about them because a lot of it's kind of their intellectual property of the business that I
Mhm.
worked with. But for me, it was really just about being clear on things. Get understanding that not everybody kind of knows where you're at or where you're going, and having to kind of understand that on the other side of the table there is someone who has had a very different experience in life to me and may not realize the what and the why and the how of what I'm trying to achieve here. So being able to put things in someone else's terms, I thought was a really useful kind of skill. I became very, very good at building stories and analogies around complex situations. So anyone who knows me knows I tell a good story around this stuff, and for me that was probably the greatest skill, was being able to put things in somebody else's terms. It's been really useful with customers as well because work in the tech industry. Sometimes the things that we do are hideously complex to the point where even we always don't understand how they work, and being able to bring that back to somebody else's kind of understanding is a really useful skill. I think that was one of the things that really benefit from.
Well, I think talking about tech and all the rest, that's probably a good segue to talk about AI. Okay.
Indeed.
So
Well done.
when you started back at Blueberry AT all those years
Mm,
ago, it probably wasn't a word, or maybe it was a little bit more sci-fi back there, in the general public at least. And so for the last couple of years, it's been the buzzword.
mm,
The market's going crazy about AI. The impact that is making is real.
mm.
How much of an impact? We'll figure out whether it's a bubble or not soon enough. I'm not sure, but your your next journey, from what I believe, is into that
Mm.
arena. Is that the case? Tell
Yeah.
us sort of what you
Yeah.
think, what you're up to, and what you're doing.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you where I came from because that's probably a good ground into where I'm going. So, when I was a kid, I was a bit moody around sci-fi stuff. I absolutely loved science fiction, and I read a lot of books, particularly by a Scottish author called Ian M. Banks. He's written a whole series of books about kind of spacefaring bunch of connected species called the culture, and their whole kind of system was built around artificial intelligence. So they had these AIs which they called minds, and the minds ran everything. They ran all of society. They were a million times more intelligent than human beings. They did all the work, and essentially what that meant was human beings were freed up to pretty much do whatever they wanted. You want to study a beetle for 30 years straight, the AI will just make it happen for you. So um, I was really it was a very kind of utopian society, quite socialistic in many ways, but I was always drawn to it, and I always thought that this would never, the AI would be something that I would never see in my lifetime. That this is a 2100s technology that may come around, but I won't ever see it. And when it started to happen a few years ago, particularly when kind of ChatGPT got released in 2002, I was just like, oh shit, this is real. Like this is where I always wanted to be. Like I can see how we might get to this even in my lifetime now. And so I fell into the AI thing with just complete abandon. I couldn't get enough of it. We did a little bit of work in Blueberry around this stuff with some customers, which is great, but it's pretty nascent technology. It's still early days, even though it's very capable. And so when I sold the business and kind of moved on, I still had this nagging thing in the back of my mind that this is something I wanted to do. And my aim was always to bring together, because I've always been a kind of an advocate for kind of human beings in this technology arena. The machines can't do everything, and the people sometimes find it difficult to relate to the machines. So we must be careful that we look after the people in this on this journey, and AI particularly because of it's so capable. So when I've been thinking about what I want to do next, I've got this kind of idea of a kind of an AI consultancy, which is essentially fairly non-technical, and it brings together my background of technology in terms of the AI stuff and my interest from when I was 15, 16, and also the coaching background that I've had. And it brings these two things together of how do you take a technology which is so vastly different to anything we've ever seen before, incorporate it into a business in a manner that gains real benefit, and does not impact the people in a negative way. And that's kind of where I see myself in the future doing more work like that. So really kind of working with business owners at that level, but kind of using technology to either get past hurdles, move obstacles out of the way, or take advantage of opportunities that are in front of them. Because AI is such an incredible lever to pull if you can put it in the right place.
So when you're talking about making sure that it doesn't impact on a negative way, the only thing that
Mm.
sort of comes into my head right now is maybe people losing their jobs. When you talk about negative way, what do you think the negatives are or could become?
Well, I mean, that's the most obvious one, I think, and that's something we should be really, really worried about. I think not enough people are talking about the impact that this technology could have on the workforce. I think right now, I don't think it's going to be a problem. I think in 5 to 10 years' time, I think it's going to be a huge problem. And I think the issue at the moment is we don't have the support systems in place to A, look after people through that journey, and B, support them when that journey becomes well, you don't have a job anymore, and there are no jobs for any people anymore, potentially, or the jobs that we have are so vastly different, and you can't retrain. I think there's something seriously missing in that jigsaw puzzle, and I think I mentioned to you before, I'm also a board member of the AI Sandbox, which is an organization in Nelson focused on kind of bringing AI to all of community. So it's not just the technical people or the business people who get access to it. So one of my pushes behind that organization is making sure that the people are looked after on this journey, because we could end up in a very, very nasty situation. I mean, I've seen stats around this, and some of them are saying, and all predictions are just guesswork at the end of the day, but a lot of people are saying within the next 10 to 15 years, we could be looking at something like 20% unemployment, even in a country like New Zealand. That is massive. We've never had to deal with that before, and we just do not have the safety nets in place. So we need to start looking at things like universal basic income. We need to look at taxing automation with these things. So, if you replace a human being, well, great, but you still got to pay for that automation somehow, because who's going to look after the human beings if they can't work? And, the greater question that comes from there is, if a lot of people base their meaning and purpose on the work that they do, and what does it mean for us as a society if we aren't working anymore? Where do we then derive meaning and purpose from? And I think that's an even bigger question that we should be looking at as well. And there are people thinking about this, but I think it's a really important question to get answered, because we are rushing headlong to a complete unknown. And whilst I'm super excited about it, it scares the shit out of me as well. Pardon my French.
Sorry.
But
And the downside, we need to think about humanity. We need to think about on our community. But of course, today we're talking about business as well, and in particular, business owners. So
yeah.
let's look at the other side of the coin, and how can we, as SME business owners, utilize this in the best way?
Yeah.
Obviously, like from my point of view, I will heavily use AI within the
Yeah.
business, but I see it as a tool to increase productivity.
Mm-hmm.
Still want to keep the team, but of course, it just means we can all do more and better. That's kind of my point of view. But for business owners listening out there, from your expertise, where can they start implementing, and even more so than just help me write an email?
So firstly, I want to congratulate you on your approach there, because I think making people more productive with this technology and not laying people off is what we should be aiming for. And I think Nelson, and this Nelson region that we live in, is one of the least productive in New Zealand, which is also one of the least productive countries in the OECD. So anything we can do to make ourselves more productive is probably a good thing.
Is that because there's an aging population here, or how do we get that stat?
I don't know. I think people just come here to chill out. They've had a corporate career and they come here to enjoy the good weather.
Their feet go to the beach.
Not today, but I think in terms of practical stuff, and this is a methodology that I use in my consultancy business. It's really just about identifying, well, where are you now? Where do you want to be in the next 2 years? What are the hurdles, challenges, opportunities that are there? And that would be, you would do that in any strategic plan. I think, a SWOT analysis of a business is a very common thing to do. But then looking at what tools are available from an AI point of view, and where are you going to get the best leverage. I never say to anybody, do everything with AI. Bite off a tiny little chunk, chew it, get used to the tools, see what happens. Remain incredibly agile about the tools themselves, because it's just a constant battle about which is the best technology to use today, and tomorrow will be a different game. So be prepared to bounce from one tool to another, and before you figure out one that actually works, and even then you might want to change tomorrow as well. But just small bite-sized things. I mean, I'm working with a few businesses at the moment in different fields. So a lawyer, a town planner. There's a bunch of different fields, but I've not found anybody yet who hasn't gained significant advantage out of it. I mean, the town planner business the planner business I'm working with, it has revolutionized them to the point where the guy who runs the business reckons he is saving around about 80% of the time that he used to spend writing consents and stuff like that. And he said to me the other day, I'm sure he won't mind me sharing this, but he said to me the other day, he rang me up, he keeps ringing me up and telling me how excited he is about it, but he rang me up the other day and said, I just had a resource consent approved with no request for further information. Guess when the last time that happened was? And I was like, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, 15 years ago. Because what he'd been doing is he'd been writing the consent, running it back through AI, and said, compare this to the Nelson plan and tell me where the planners in the council are going to ask questions and then answer those questions for me. It was, like I said, it was the first time in 15 years that he's ever had one go through. And that to me is a huge win, although he now has lost a revenue generating because he used to get paid for doing RFIs. But yeah, so he's having to rethink how he charges for his work as well. And
And to
lawyers are
be
the
fair,
same.
no doubt on the other side, they'll start picking up AI, and it will just be two AIs chatting to each other.
I think all councils should be seriously looking at AI from a planning and resource consent point of view, because it is a completely rules based field. And yeah, there is discretion, of course, around those things, but 80 to 90% of the time, you're just matching rules, policies, and things like that. And that's something that at most general AIs like ChatGPT are exceptionally good at, and most councils, and particularly the one in Nelson here, are completely overrun with work because getting junior town planners is next to impossible. But we could revolutionise how the council works here by implementing AI. I'd love to talk to them about it, but
There you go. I'm sure, if they had a modest budget of $1 million or so, they could talk to you. And
it wouldn't even cost a tenth of that.
hey, no, that's really cool. The AI thing, yeah, I really want to. I guess I do dive in myself, and I do use it a lot, and just the exponentially how it sort of gets better and better. A lot of people I talk to, and they go, "Oh, I tried that, it didn't work,"
Yeah.
but I think people just need to stick at it a little bit more to
Mm.
actually really test and more so learn how to use the tool so you
Yeah.
get the results that you're after.
Yeah. Learning to use the tool is essential, and I think that one of the fun and interesting things, particularly about tools like ChatGPT or Claude, is the more you use them, the more they learn about you, and the more they learn about you, the more useful they become. So, I'm actually in the process of training up a digital twin for myself. So I'm probably going to spend a few months on doing this, and essentially that digital twin will be working as my personal assistant in my business, and it will know what I know, and it will help guide me in terms of planning my day, doing client outreach, doing the work that I'm doing, but doing it way faster and more efficiently than I can, but still having my personality in there. So I'm uploading articles and things that I've written so it understands my writing style and things like that. So it's like, it takes time to get these things trained up, but I think that the effort is worth it.
So I'm going to think in social media space, X number of years ago, I probably couldn't put a point on it, but there wasn't a job or in businesses, it was like social media was just a thing over here.
Mm,
Probably more than not now, businesses do have either contracted or internally a social media manager. I'm just kind of thinking, I'm wondering if that role of social media manager, that there is going to be a new role within businesses come out, the AI manager or AI implementer or whatever we're going to call this role. Do you think that
mm.
that's going to be a role within businesses like we've seen social media managers?
I don't know, because I don't see it in the same way. I think for me, I just think that AI is just like another tool, like a computer. You don't wouldn't walk into an office and see someone working on a pad and pay, pad and pen anymore. It just people do obviously, but it doesn't. It's not how you function in a work environment. And to me, AI is just another clip-on tool for that kind of stuff. Obviously, way more capable, and it's the first technology we've ever had where if you get stuck with it, you ask it what to do and it tells you. It's incredible. We've never had that in the technology arena before. But I think genuinely it's just a hammer, and you've got to decide what you want to hit with it. And some things not worth hitting, like a piece of glass, and some things like a nail. Yeah, that's a good thing to hit with a hammer. So you just got to get good at identifying what the tool is and what you're going to hit with it, I suppose.
I was actually talking to someone just yesterday that was in the travel industry, and they were actually looking at changing industries completely because their comments were they saw the writing on the wall about the mass market of the travel agency will be going down.
Hmm.
They'd been through the whole change in internet where people sort of started booking on, and they made it through that, but they saw this as probably next level thing. In their point of view, they were saying that, hey, look, they believe that there will be some niche players out there that win in the travel industry. But he said, look, a lot of the mass market, he kind of believed that the AI would be taking over in the next couple of years.
Yeah, yeah. But I think that's the viewpoint I take on this as well. And I think what will happen is that the people will the people who succeed, I guess, will be the ones who take and use these tools and then put their own personality on top of it. And I think people are never going to get away from wanting to deal with other people, but for certain things, I mean, I would be in the same boat myself. I know I've got some friends who are travel agents, but if I could sit down and go to a computer and go, right, I want to do this, and this, can you recommend some other things I could do in there? And can you pump me out an itinerary with all the pricing on it? And it did it in 10 seconds rather than relying on a human who's going to take 3 days to do it. What are you going to do? I mean, I said way back in the beginning when ChatGPT came out, lawyers and doctors really should be absolutely crap in their pants at the moment because this technology is going to replace them almost immediately. Earlier in the year, Microsoft built a medically trained AI that was close to 80% more effective at diagnosis than most GPs and cost about 20% to run. So we're already in a position now where you've got an 80% gain and an 80% decrease in price. Why would you be bothered training up as a doctor anymore?
Mm.
But then I think what will happen is that field will change, and the people who will do well in it are the ones who understand the field, but also are able to really use the technology. The doctors who go, it's a waste of time, they're the ones who are going to struggle.
Yeah, no.
Even if they're great at what they do, it's just that they won't have the ability to function in the same way that other people who are good at the tools will, and that will leave them behind. And I think, this is why when I'm working with businesses, my encouragement on everybody who's involved, and I always like to bring the whole team into these meetings, is just get used to playing with it. Don't try and hide from it, because if you do, you will get left behind very quickly, and that does not bode well for you.
There we go. Hey, look, it's been so interesting talking to you today. I really
Likewise.
love to hear about your journey, learning along the way, a little bit of ADHD, a little bit of AI in there as well. So we've had everything.
All of the acronyms.
Hey, I look forward to hopefully speaking to you again really, really soon. And
Likewise.
yeah, of course, if anyone's out there looking at AI solutions, where are they going to find you? How are they going to reach you, Richard?
We have a website now, so arcana.com, so arcaina.com.
Perfect.
So that was the kind of thing. It's about creating gold from lead, I guess, is the best thing I can describe it.
I like
it.
it.
Thank you.
Hey, it's been a pleasure. This has been Let's Talk Small Business, and we'll see you again.
Thanks, Mitch, and really enjoyed it.
Let's Talk Small Business. I appreciate you tuning in. If you got value, hit subscribe, like, or drop a comment. It spreads the word and might just help another legend get their breakthrough.